I'm honestly blown away that he didn't die from that wake-up hit again.
How are you supposed to... This is like the third monster. And it's just beating you down so hard.
It is actually the third monster, that's the thing. Like, it is genuinely the third monster.
It's just sapping your ability to survive. Oh, Huskberry.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! I did not think that we were going to kill it. There's just that moment there where like a cat pushed you and stole your Huskberry, and then the Apsaros fucking shoved you onto the floor, and they put you on your lowest.
You know, it breaks my heart that most people will never experience the joy of Monster Hunter 1 Sephadrome. But what if they could? Hello then, my fellow hunters. Today I want to talk about something that comes up a lot, and not just in Monster Hunter, but gaming in general. Take old, good, much-loved thing, and then revive it and re-release it in now times. Everybody happy. And while there are really bad examples of that happening, there are also really good ones too. And Monster Hunter as a series is kind of primed for it. More than, honestly, most other games. And that's because Monster Hunter has a certain essence that most don't have, in the sense that every single entry, every single gen, is so meaningfully its own contained unique experience within the framework of the larger Monster Hunter constants. Now don't get me wrong, there's obviously a lot of game series of which every entry is worth playing, and it's not just the latest one is clearly the best one. And even in Monster Hunter's case, obviously I think it's fair for anyone to kind of make the argument that 5th gen onwards is best, air quotes, Monster Hunter, but I also wouldn't begrudge anyone who's like, no, I think 3rd gen was best, and so on and so forth. And with Monster Hunter, because of the way that they evolve the formula, because of the new things that they try every generation, because inherently outside of the core pillars of Monster Hunter that always remain, everything built upon those pillars is such a unique adventure that you can't just play Wilds and be like, cool, I've experienced Monster Hunter. You've experienced Monster Hunter Wilds Edition, which is very different. Now, don't for a second think I'm implying that anyone that's just played Wilds, etc. is somehow less of a Monster Hunter fan. Obviously not. That would be ridiculous. The point I'm making, though, is that getting into Monster Hunter means you have over 20 years of quality experiences to actually enjoy, which is only a really good thing. The issue is, though, most of them you can't really enjoy anymore. In fact, outside of specifically Generations Ultimate, everything before that, 4U, everything 3rd gen, everything 2nd gen, everything 1st gen, requires a certain amount of hoops to jump through. Either somehow having original copies of the games with original systems and setup, or going down the route of emulators and so on and so forth. Basically, it's not very approachable for a casual player that just wants to experience the old Monster Hunter games. And I think that's why it always comes back to this, God, wouldn't it be good to one day get a remastered, updated version of the peak game from each gen, and then make it nicely optimized and playable and smooth on PC and whatever current consoles there are. And don't get me wrong, this is not just an easy thing. You don't just press a switch and ta-da, and you can now play Freedom Unite on PC, officially supported with an officially Capcom version. That's not how these things work. It would take a lot of time and effort, and that's time and effort diverted away from whatever the current Monster Hunter project is. It's not something you just kind of casually do. When I talk about this, there is no essence of, I can't believe they've not done it yet. Oh, that's just not realistic, but it is something that I think would be greatly loved. Granted, I'm not sure it would be greatly loved by enough people to maybe make it worth it on Capcom's part. I don't know how many people would be eager to get into Monster Hunter 1 and experience the pure joy of chasing a Sephiroth around a desert for 45 minutes, hitting it 3 times! But there is a certain trial by fire kind of initiation for everyone that has experienced that Monster Hunter 1, let's say, uniqueness compared to everything that came afterwards. It still blows me away that young me, over 20 years ago, got Monster Hunter 1, sat down on my PS2 to play it, and I was like, yeah, this is the best thing in the world! And it set me on the path that led me to here, because in hindsight, between how kind of archaic everything is, between the fact that the controls were a harder enemy than any of the monsters, despite all of the monsters being ridiculously brutal back then, and there's just so much that really in hindsight is kind of questionable, but also there's so much that remains charming and easy to point to, as clearly this is why Monster Hunter has eventually led to where it is now, which is globally one of the most popular games ever. In any case, seeing where it began is very satisfying. Experiencing it is a very special experience. I won't say an entirely pleasurable one, but certainly one that I think anyone would be happy to at least dip their toe into if they are very much into their Monster Hunter. But then you look past that to the second gen with Freedom Unite, which I still think you could definitely make an argument for, well, like a golden age of Monster Hunter, because it really was special. Just the farm. I miss the farm so much that second gen had. It really, really is something that I loved about the series, how much you put into managing your resources and having basic supplies of basic stuff, and upgrading your farm stations with the points as you got the ability to. It felt so rewarding, but I'm a big sucker for your Stardew Valley kind of games, right? So having that sort of added on to my Monster Hunter experience was just brilliant for me. I understand that not everyone would love that, but I totally would rejoice to see something like it return in a future Monster Hunter game. An actual area for you to literally cultivate. In any case, that's a perfect example of what I'm saying here. There are systems in Monster Hunter Generations that will never, more than likely, be explored, updated, etc. again. There are unique components to the core Monster Hunter experience that changes it in so many new and fun and interesting ways between the gens that you can only really experience by going back and playing it, and it's still a really fun time. It's just different, but it's still so beautifully Monster Hunter. And Monster Hunter would not benefit at all from remakes, right? Taking an old-gen Monster Hunter and, air quotes, modernizing it, maybe giving the weapons modern movesets, making everything smooth, opening up the map so there's not loading between zones, you know, putting those little tweaks onto it kind of would work against you. It would be pointless, because at that point you are just essentially playing a worse version of World of Wilds, etc. You kind of don't need to do that. All previous Monster Hunter gens need is just the ability to be officially supported and played on current systems and PCs. That's literally it. Maybe you give it like a texture pass and, you know, a little bit of quality of life, some obvious bumps, etc. But the reality is, the less you change, the better, because essentially every Monster Hunter game from each gen is worth playing in its own right for what it is. And altering that is not only wasted effort if you do, but defeating the point of the exercise. And that's what I was kind of saying with Monster Hunter being really special in that way. And I don't think there really is a better, bigger example of unique things to experience that you really can't anymore than 3rd gen and underwater combat, of course. We got a little sign of light diet taste version of it with Legiacrus in Wilds, and that was really exciting to see. And it does kind of make me think that maybe nothing is actually off the table for a return, but it's also something, again, that you can just never get anywhere else. And I think above all of this, right, the big one is the monsters. There is so many monsters, literally hundreds of them, and so many of them you simply will never be able to hunt, or maybe not for a long time until they happen to come back, and even then there's many versions of monsters that just have no reason to ever be picked back up again. It's just kind of pointless, that you cannot experience unless you go hunt them in the game that they actually starred in, and that's such a huge reason to go back. It's one of the biggest reasons that me and Codden went through Monster Hunter 1, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, doing every monster that we couldn't experience in GU, in World, in Wilds, in Rise Break, etc. And it was such a satisfying experience, seeing that evolution, but also seeing things that I think are just objectively the best they've ever been in each particular generation. I think there is arguments to be made of mechanics and systems in each gen, maybe not Monster Hunter 1, that are better than things we have even now in 5th gen onwards, and that's really, really cool. And bottom line, I don't think I have to convince anyone that getting a actual remaster officially working on PC, Capcom supported, like, bundle of, here's Monster Hunter 1, or Monster Hunter DOS, or Monster Hunter Freedom, or Freedom Unite, and then take Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and so on and so forth, and now you can enjoy them all nicely, just get it on Steam and off you go. I don't think I need to convince anyone that that would be fun, right? But at the same time, I think it is worth always stressing and repeating just why, in Monster Hunter's case, that would be such a much bigger deal than many other games getting the same thing, because of just how encapsulated in their own little bubble each generation is, despite being still distinctly, of course, Monster Hunter. And I hope that one day, maybe in some sort of void vacuum time between Monster Hunter releases, maybe after the Wilds Master Rank expansion is done, and there's like 2 years until whatever the equivalent of Rise Break is for the 6th gen, maybe in a period like that, I would just love to see a little bit of a remaster happen. Because I remember Generations Ultimate finally coming to us. It was such a cool moment, and being able to take Codden back into the past a little bit for that. But obviously it was the most recent game before World, so it's not exactly crazy, but even then, the difference is still absolutely stark. Let's imagine something like Rise Break with wire bugs and switch skills. If they end up being the only Monster Hunter games ever, forever, that have wire bugs and switch skills, etc., well, that would be a real shame if one day you had no ability to easily, legitimately just grab Rise Break and play it. That likely won't happen because thankfully it is a modern Monster Hunter. But that's kind of the point I'm saying, right? Like 30 years from now, it will be a ancient kind of classic Monster Hunter game. And you could see someone like me making a video like this and going, God, I really wish we could get just like a remaster of Rise Break that works on current whatever systems would be then, because people really should experience switch skills. They were so cool back in the day. You know, it's that kind of thing. Monster Hunter, one of its biggest strengths is how worthwhile every game is, but that also comes with the cost of when each game fades out into inaccessibility, it loses something special that I would always like to see come back. So yeah, just a kind of regular rallying cry for one day. I hope we do get remasters that let us play all the old Monster Hunter games easily and comfortably on modern systems, but as I said, it's not something you can just do, it's not easy, it's not a small undertaking, it has to be worthwhile from Capcom's perspective, and, you know, the non-Monster Hunter fan part of me knows that it probably likely isn't, which is a little bit of a shame, but I do think, more than anything, what I want you to take away from this is if you have at all the ability or the patience to set up a way for you to play old Monster Hunter games and generations, you really should give it a go if you're bored and need something to play, because it really is just that good and worthwhile. For now then, let me know what you think, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.